Welcome to Cooking with the Gomez. Today we'll be turning to indigenous foods to learn about the health benefits of real green cooking. Indigenous people in Mexico and other Latin American countries use ground cornmeal for a variety of dishes, including corundas, tamales, and tortillas, of course, and even drinks. And they have an incredible amount of nutritional benefits, proteins, and other foods that keep energy very high. The Tarahumara Indians, for example, could run 50 to 100 miles a day, and they primarily ate white corn ground meal into nixtamal. Today we'll be using this ground meal to make gorditas de la villa. And gorditas de la villa are just kind of like a cookie. So join us for Cooking with the Gomez. We are making gorditas de la villa. And the name comes from La Villa, where the Virgin of Guadalupe has the basilica, and they sell these little white corn cookies, cakes outside of the church, so they're cakes from the Villa. But they're called a lot of other things. They're similar to tortillas, but they're kind of like a cookie. For these little Mexican gorditas de la Villa, you're going to need the following ingredients: 2 cups of pinole, or white corn flour that is made with maíz cacahuacintle, or white corn, 2 tablespoons of lard, 1 chunk of piloncillo. If you can't get piloncillo, which is basically unrefined cane sugar that's made into a cake, you can substitute that with 1/2 cup of sugar. 4 egg yolks, only the yolks, 1 teaspoon of tequesquite, which is another indigenous food, a spice actually, and that can be substituted with baking soda and salt. So it would be 1/4 of a teaspoon of salt and 3/4 of a teaspoon of baking soda. Then you need 2 tablespoons of peanut butter and warm water. For your toppings, you can choose a variety of things. These cookies taste great by themselves, but you could add butter, which is my favorite, or Nutella, chocolate syrup, cajeta, which is a caramel made from goat's milk, dulce de leche, which is cooked sweetened condensed milk. You can use the sweetened condensed milk by itself, or honey, or jelly, or jam, or anything else you can think of. Now for the preparation. First, you're going to want to dissolve your tequesquite. If you can find tequesquite, and you can buy it online, you're going to get some impurities in it. They sell it in a variety of forms. You will want to dissolve that in some warm water, about 2 to 3 tablespoons of water, and then dissolve the 1 teaspoon of tequesquite in that water. You can stick that in the microwave and let it cook for 40-50 seconds, and then make sure that you drain it so that you can take out any impurities like little pieces of hay or rocks, which tend to be in tequesquite packets. Now, if you don't have tequesquite, you can also substitute that, like I said, for 1/4 tablespoon of salt and 3/4 tablespoons of baking soda. Tequesquite is actually comes from the Nahual, which is another name for the Aztecs or the Mexicas, or the indigenous people of Mexico, of that area, and it's pronounced tequesquite. And it comes from the Nahual quisquitl, which means bubbling, and tetl, which means rock. So bubbling rock. And this was a foam and a rock that kind of mineralized around the lakes, the salt lakes of Mexico, like the Lake of Texcoco, which is near Mexico City. And this could be found, this foaming mineral could be found in the receding waters of these salt lakes. Now, this tequesquite in the indigenous times was used as the poor man's salt. Salt is a commodity, was something that only the affluent and the dignitaries could use, the emperors and all of his posse. So people often use tequesquite as salt because it contains salt. The tequesquite was traditionally used in all sorts of Mexican foods that everybody knows, like tamales and tortillas, but also was used to cook a variety of other vegetables, especially green vegetables, because it's a natural color preserver. So it keeps the vibrant greens of vegetables in the food without taking that away when you cook it. It also is a bean softener, so lentils, beans would be cooked with tequesquite to make them soft. And it did the same thing for meat, so it was used as a meat tenderizer. It was also used as leavening by itself or in combination with cooking a tomatillo, green tomato skins, in water and mixing them with tequesquite, and it was a wonderful leavening for breads and cakes. Tequesquite can also be mixed with pulque to make vinegar. Pulque is the water that comes out of the maguey or the century plants that is fermented, and it's used in making cobalt blue and orange. It's also used to convert fat into soap, to fertilize plants, as a laxative for livestock. It's used to soften stains in laundry. It was used in metallurgy. Basically what it is a combination of sodium bicarbonate and sodium chloride. So it had so many applications in the indigenous times, and now it was even used for dental care, for washing dishes, and for absorbing bad odors. And it had many medicinal purposes as well. So you want to melt the tequesquite with some water, about 2 to 3 tablespoons of water, and then you want to strain out any impurities. So strain your tequesquite water for little rocks or pieces of hay. Then you'll take your melted tequesquite water and you're going to add your sugar, or if you found piloncillo, which is much better for you than sugar, you will want to take your piloncillo chunk and you will take a medium piece, about a cup of sugar's worth of piloncillo, and put it in that water. Feel free to add 2 or 3 more tablespoons of water on top and stick it into the microwave for about a minute at a time. Now you're going to take the piloncillo water out, pour it on top of your piloncillo as if you were basting your piloncillo, and this will keep melting the chunk of piloncillo down until it becomes a syrup. You'll have to do this several times, and you want to use a spoon so that you can mash the chunks of piloncillo and get them completely dissolved into your water. Feel free to add more water to get your consistency very syrupy and thick, almost like molasses. Piloncillo has many advantages over sugar. It's basically unrefined whole cane sugar that is created through a process of mashing the cane fruit, mixing it with water and boiling it at very high heat, and by a process of evaporation you're left with these big chunks of unrefined whole cane sugar called a variety of things. In Mexico it's called piloncillo. It's also used in Colombia, Ecuador, Guatemala, Panama, Peru, Venezuela, and Bolivia, and they called it panela, chancaca, papelón, panocha, rapadura. It's also used in Pakistan, India, and Sri Lanka, and it goes by the name of gru. In Laos it goes by the name of namoy. So many countries use this product, and it's very healthy. Unlike refined white sugar, piloncillo contains impurities which happen to be good. Impurities sound bad, but in this case it's actually very good because we have proteins in those impurities, calcium, iron, absorbic acid, which is basically vitamin C, copper, magnesium, and small particles of fluorine and selenium. It's considered one of the most basic food sweeteners in Mexican cooking, and it's used in all sorts of wonderful Mexican foods, from atole to capirotada to champurrado and flan. That's a big favorite that everyone has probably heard of. Piloncillo also has many health benefits. In third world countries, it's frequently used for health and vitality of children. It's used to treat thrush. It's better for children than sugar because it prevents constipation, it prevents rickets, it prevents nutritional anemia, it prevents tooth decay. It's a natural energy replacement. But it also helps to purify the blood. People in indigenous times and Mexicans today use it for preventing rheumatic afflictions, preventing bile disorders. There are even modern studies that show that it helps heal lesions in the lungs due to dust or smoke inhalation. It's really an amazing sweetener that you don't have to feel guilty about using. Now you want to take your syrup of piloncillo or sugar and you want to mix in your peanut butter. Mix it in really well, and then you'll separate out 4 egg yolks and set those aside. Then you want to take your white corn flour or your pinole, if you found that, and you want to cut your lard into that white corn flour. Then you will be adding your piloncillo and peanut butter mixture and cut that in as well. Finally, you will whisk your egg yolks with water and mix that into your dough. Take your dough and mix it with a spoon or mix it by hand, and you want to have a consistency like cookie dough that you can roll into a little ball and pat into a little cookie. You don't want it to be very thick and you don't want it to be very wide. You want to take about 2 to 3 tablespoons of dough in your hand and make a cookie that's no more than 5 centimeters in diameter. You can keep adding warm water to this dough until it is the consistency that you need before you put it on the hot plate and start cooking. Pinole is, interestingly, really just this white corn flour that's toasted. So if you don't have pinole and you want to try this variation, which is a twist on the original recipe, you can just toast your white corn flour and you will have pinole. But the white corn flour is a very Mexican, very Aztec, same thing, very Nahuatl, also same thing. And a lot of indigenous people have been using pinole and white corn for centuries. The Tarahumara Indians of Mexico, for example, use pinole as a staple in drinks and in the meal that they use to make their tortillas and their food. And they run 50 to 100 miles at a time for fun. It is an incredible energy source. It is something that indigenous Mexicans figured out they could use to make a whole protein when they mix it with beans. Finally, you want to take this dough, make your little cakes, put them on your hot plate, turn them once after the edges start to dry and your cake begins to rise. And then you want to place them in a basket with a warm towel so that you can serve them warm with any toppings that you like or with no toppings. This is a great recipe. It teaches us a lot about our indigenous roots as well as giving us a really healthy alternative to cookies and cakes made with a lot of sugar. I hope you try this recipe at home. And here are our finished gorditas de la villa. And these have chocolate, another wonderful invention of Mexico, chocolatl, as it was originally called by the Nahuatl Indians. And I'm going to take a taste. That is fantastic. Their kids are going to love these. Try them at home. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Cooking with the Gomez. Hi folks, today we are going to be making a very simple but a staple recipe for every Mexican kitchen. It is Mexican rice, or Spanish rice as you've heard it called. And all the ingredients for the Spanish rice are here. Nemo's already measured out our rice for us, which is
2 cups of rice.
And our chicken broth, which is
4 cups of chicken broth.
And
Plus at least 4, because we were short half a cup of water, boiling water, with half a teaspoon of this
Nor tomate. This is a Nor product which has chicken flavoring and tomato in a pinch. If you don't have any other way of making Mexican rice or Spanish rice, you don't have tomatoes, onions, and garlic, which I like to make sure we put into the rice, then you can substitute with this and boiling water. But we're going to do it with real chicken juice. We were just a half a cup short, so we did a little bit of this, which will just give it a little boost of flavor. Again, we have 2 cups of rice, 4 cups of broth, a can of diced tomatoes, a small onion, and some garlic. And to start off, I'm going to go ahead and start heating up my pan here. And I'm going to cut up some carrots. You can use other vegetables if you have corn, or if you have frozen vegetables that are pre-cooked. That works really well. I want to make them as small as possible so that they cook quickly. So I'm going to be doing a very small. I've seen people make this carrots with the carrots actually like shaved in, because you know they can be a little bit hard. And Nemo gave me the tiniest little cutting board in human history. Meanwhile, like I said, we've got our pan heating up, medium heat. Make sure you don't cut your fingers while you're doing this. Now, why don't you put some oil into the pan?
Okay.
A couple tablespoons or so.
Yeah, just gonna eyeball it.
And that's good.
Yep.
And I'm going to go ahead and just give these a quick saute in the oil so that they will start to cook a little bit. So we will let those start to cook. And now we can get our menudencia ready. So essentially what this is just tomato, onion, and garlic. There's a can of diced tomato. You can always use fresh tomatoes if you have them. Here's the onion and the garlic. And I'm going to go ahead and put that on the blender. Okie dokie. This is kind of onion, garlic, and tomato is kind of the base. We call it a menudencia, and it's kind of the base for a lot of the things that we cook. So there you have it. Now, as these carrots, I put them in first because I want them to start to cook, and once we get the rice in here and we put the broth in and we let it go, it's going to be about 20 minutes. That's how fast this rice will be done. So I like to cook the vegetables, especially if they're raw vegetables like carrots, ahead of time, a little bit, so that when those 20 minutes are up, these vegetables are nice and tender, just like the rest of the rice. Now today, we are going to be combining a very simple dish with a childhood snack. We have we have tomato, onion, and garlic, and we're going to be pairing our rice with banana. I know you probably think that's crazy. Why would you put bananas in your rice? Well, you only say that because you haven't done it. But once you have tried bananas with your rice, it's going to be hard for you to go back. And if you're a kid, if you're a Mexican kid, and you had second day rice with some bananas, you know what I'm talking about. Nemo, you've had this, right?
I have, but as you had told me once upon a time, rice and banana is like one of the earliest foods that's in like those Gerber like mixes, purees. And
Rice
so,
and bananas.
So yeah, whether it's together or separated, those are like the base flavors that babies start on. So, even when it's in its cooked form, it reaches down into that nostalgia.
Mm-hmm. Turn this up just a little tiny wee bit. You see I've added my rice now. And what we're trying to do is to get a cook on the rice that brings out the nuttiness in the rice.
Right, you want that toast.
I want a little bit of toast. I'm going to put a little bit more oil in here.
Mm-hmm.
It's like maybe another teaspoon and a half.
Sure.
So I'm just going to spread the rice and let it take on some color. You'll start to see the rice changing color from white to a little bit brownish orange. Now, of course, mine is already a little orange because it's got carrots in there. And the carrots are going to continue to cook. You want to be careful not to turn up your heat too much, because if you turn up the heat too much, you will burn your rice.
Yes.
And so one of the tricks of doing this is to keep the rice moving. Keep it moving around. And keep it at a decent heat.
Mm-hmm.
It's also good to use a good pan that distributes the heat evenly along the bottom layer of your pan. So is this delantar, Mexican delantar, of this chibi Frida Kahlo character, is it not the most adorable thing you've ever seen?
Yeah.
I have pockets in my Frida Kahlo. I just got this when I went to Mexico. And it's pretty cool, right, dude? Mexican delantares are like mom uniforms. They're kitchen, Mexican kitchen worker uniforms. Everybody has them.
Mm-hmm.
I like trying to get new ones when I go down to Mexico.
Well, I feel like they're more efficient covering like disaster zone areas.
Right?
Better than a regular apron.
Yeah, because the regular aprons, you just put them around your neck and it's like...
Right, and you got like all that exposed shoulder. You got like something that has nice shoulder decorations, like of your shirt or a dress or something.
Mm,
This covers it more better.
this covers everything. Everything you need. And you can smell, as the rice is cooking, you can smell that nutty flavor as it comes off of the rice. You smell it?
Yep. Yep. Oh yeah. It's just beginning.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to put some sea salt in here. And you can tell this has been cooking for a while now. The rice has taken on a more brown flavor and it smells different. That smell of nuttiness is coming out. So this is the point at which I'm going to saute put in the tomato. And I'm going to just cover that real quick. Meanwhile, carefully clean this out. Get every last drop of that tomato in there. Some of the chicken juice, and I'll pass that on to Nemo. So I'm spreading the tomato around in there. I really want that to integrate first and give it a chance to actually cook that tomato and that onion and that garlic. Now when we put in this broth, we're just going to set our timer for 20 minutes. 2 cups of rice, 4 cups of broth. You can make vegetarian versions of this with vegetable broth instead, but I like the full chicken. I like the full chicken flavor. So now I'm going to go ahead and put this in. And that is all that she wrote. This rice should be ready in 20 minutes. Why don't you set the timer for me now? I can never set this one timer. It hates me. Why don't you set the timer for 20 minutes for me? There you go. Alright, we'll be back in 20 with rice. Okay. The rice should be done. Ah! Ton of smoke. Go ahead and turn this off.
Keep the lift. How's it looking there?
Beautiful. It looks beauteous. Perfect in every way. And that's it. That is it. That is all. See, all of the liquid got absorbed. The pieces of rice are perfectly cooked and they're still intact. Like I said, you can have this with other vegetables like corn or peas. Peas are always good. How pretty that is. Yeah. And then we need our tomato. I mean our a banana. Tomato. We're gonna have tomato and banana. Put our slices in there. Once you've tried this, leave your comments. Let me know what you thought. If you're a little kid at heart, and especially if you've already had this as a child, you're going to appreciate the memory, the flavor of eating rice and banana. It's still wonderful. The memory of that perfect bite. I'll cool this down for you.
Okay.
Perfect bite, right?
Perfect bite.
That's it, guys. Mexican rice, Spanish rice, and bananas. Try it out. Tell us what you think. So this is my queso dip, and for the ingredients you're going to need about, let's see, this is chopped pickled jalapenos. This is about a 1/4 cup. Really it's almost a 1/2 cup. I like a little bit more bite in mine, but you can just do a 1/2 cup or less if you don't like that. A small chopped onion, very finely diced, and you can do yellow or white. I like white because it's a white queso dip, although I am putting in yellow cheese. This is actually 1 giant garlic clove, but usually it's 2, And I like a lot of garlic, so this might be the equivalent of like 3 small garlic cloves. Here we have the cheeses. I'm using about a half a cup to 3/4 cup of yellow cheddar cheese, sharp, and about 1 to 1.5 cups of the Monterey Jack. Then over here I've got a half a cup of whole whipping cream and then 1 cup of milk. And in here I have some cayenne pepper, some salt, some coriander, about half a teaspoon coriander, half a teaspoon of cumin. And to start, I'm just going to put in about a couple of tablespoons of oil into a hot pan. And you do not want your vegetables to burn, so I'm going to pull that off a little bit. And I'm just going to stick the onions in first. And then I'm going to just saute those really quick. This is an oil that I infused with garlic first, so it's got even a more garlicky taste. You don't want to overcook your onions, so watch them really carefully. You just want them to start becoming translucent. And then the next step is I'm going to add the garlic. And we're only going to make a little hot spot here in the middle. My onions are almost translucent. Not quite, but they're close. And now I'm going to go ahead and add my garlic. And you do not want the garlic to burn, so keep it moving. Now I'm going to open my beer. You can add as little or as much beer as you want. Obviously you're going to have to adjust your recipe depending on how much beer you add. This is really the secret ingredient of any good queso dip, so I would definitely recommend putting this in even if you're not a beer drinker, because the alcohol is going to be cooked out anyway and the taste is not comparable. So I think I put in about a half a cup of beer here, half a cup to 3/4 cup, and I'm just going to bring that back up. Bubbles are starting to form again, so at this point I'm going to go ahead and add my milk. And now I'm going to add my heavy cream. And finally, I'm going to add my spices. You want to bring this back up to heat, not a boil. You do not want this milk to boil, but you do want to get it right before boiling point. So bring the heat back up. And while that is going, I'm going to start the roux. So in order to make the roux, I'm going to put about a tablespoon of butter in here. You want to melt that, but we do not want to really let it brown. And then we're going to put the flour in right away. And this will create our roux. This will just cook the flour. And you want to keep moving that as you begin to add the milk. Stir constantly as you're adding milk. just want to continue to stir this and let it thicken. And now you're going to add your jalapenos. Now this is kind of a chunky queso dip. As you can see, there's lots of chunks in there. And I really like mine nice and smooth. So I'm going to pulse it a little bit. You gotta be really careful when you're doing this because you do not want to splatter hot queso dip on yourself. So you want to make sure that your queso dip is thickening up for you nicely. And if you use a wooden spoon like this, you can just run your finger across. And when you can leave a clean track like that and it takes a while to cover up, you have a good consistency. So now, the other thing that you want to do when you check for the consistency is to make sure that the taste is good. I'm going to go ahead now and add some more jalapeno juice. I like mine hot, so again, I'm going to add quite a bit. Now I'm going to add a little bit of salt. It's about maybe less than a quarter of a teaspoon. And now I'm going to go ahead and add the cheese. And stir that in slowly. Get the cheese to melt in there. And that's it. Queso dip. Done. Oh yeah. Perfect. There's a queso dip with a little bit of fresh chive on top. And then you just need some good chips and just dip in.